Why do you think there's such a focus on drugs specifically without looking at the underlying things? Do you have any sense of why the spotlight tends to be on drugs?
Yeah, historically speaking, well, at first it was a. I think it came from a misunderstanding. It looks pretty. You could steel man the argument, and it looks like in the years of prohibition, and different societal problems that went on, and you wanted to just do a correlation. A lot of the people who are having the most trouble seem to also be people who are drinking or using drugs. So historically speaking, people kind of link those two things, even though marketers, people in the country knew better. When you were able to legally sell diamorphine and heroin in stores, people weren't so worried about, oh, isn't heroin going to kill everybody? And indeed, it didn't. But obviously there were problems, and I think that I'm trying to be as fair as I can, because I want to say, and I think this is true to an extent, looking at drugs as the source of the problem sort of gives a simple solution, kind of an answer. If drugs are the problem, then we have one single enemy. We can all target it. So that was, I think, unjustified sort of thinking through years of, hundreds of years of American history. But also then there came a point where, because of this way of thinking, people who use drugs or were called addicted were seen as total moral failures and people who should be either incarcerated or dealt with punitively. And the medical community decided at some point, and this is really highlighted and became pervasive in the late 1990s, 1997, that we could call this thing a disease, because if we do that, we would get funding. And this is not just me. What's the word? I'm not just saying, this is not my speculation. This is the National Institute on Drug Abuse in writing explains that the basis for calling drug addiction a disease is in part that it would help get people funding for medical treatments.
Wow.
So they have this box that they now need to fill. It's like they're saying, okay, we call addiction a disease. That gives us this, ways to get people help. So, it came from a good place. Now, how do we prove it's a disease? And so 90% of the research at the National Institute of Health that has to do with drugs and addiction is funded in order for experimenters to double down on, to continue to prove that drug addiction is a disease. Very little research money and grants are going to research to see why drugs may or may not be the problem, or if there are other things that addiction is, or if there are other involvements that people could have that are also addictive. So I think that we see it started from a trend of an initial misunderstanding, a trend of wanting to help people. So we say if we call it a disease, then at least we're saying people are sick rather than people are bad.
Yeah.
And then we follow the money that has been perpetuated over time.